Hello again, Pascal. I have been thinking more about your wager.
That is good. Have you decided to believe that God exists?
No. I have been thinking about your argument carefully, and I think I have found a number of reasons to reject it.
Oh?
You stated that there is an equal chance of wagering correctly as there is of wagering incorrectly.
Yes. God either exists or does not exist.
But that does not mean that there is a 50% chance that God exists, and a 50% chance that God does not exist.
Okay. But that does not change the wager. Remember that there is an infinite amount to be gained in wagering that God exists. Even if there is only a 1% chance that God exists, as long as there is an infinite amount to be won, it is still rational to believe that God exists.
Okay. But suppose that it is impossible that God exists.
What reasons do you have to reject the possibility that God exists?
I have heard that God is omnipotent, meaning that he is all-powerful. Claiming that God is omnipotent leads to a paradox, however.
Go on.
If God is omnipotent, then he has the power to do anything. So it would seem that God could make it so that 2 plus 2 does not equal 4. But that is absurd.
Omnipotence does not require that one can do what is logically impossible, like make 2 plus 2 equal something other than 4, or create an object that is both square and circular.
Okay. Here is a dilemma. Can God create a stone so heavy that even he cannot lift it? If he can, then he has created something that he cannot lift, but then he is not all-powerful. If he cannot create the stone, then he is still not all-powerful.
This objection you are raising is known as the omnipotence paradox. It is easily refuted. I have already stated that God cannot do what is logically impossible. For God to create a stone so heavy that even he cannot lift it would be just as impossible as creating a square circle.
Oh?
What is more, many theologians have pointed out that God is essentially, or necessarily omnipotent. This means that he cannot be anything other than all-powerful. His omnipotence is not something accidental or contingent. Even though God is said to be omnipotent, he is still limited in some sense. Not only can he not do what is logically impossible, but he cannot be anything other than himself. He is also said to be omnibenevolent, which means that he is all good. Therefore, God cannot lie, or do anything that is morally wrong.
So what you are saying is that because God is who he is, he cannot do certain things that would make him less than God.
Precisely.
Okay, so perhaps it is possible that God exists. I still think there are other objections to your argument. When you say that either God exists or that God does not exist, you seem to be leaving out other possibilities.
What other possibilities? There can be none as a matter of logic.
Okay, but what you mean by God is the Christian God, the God of the Bible. But there might be other gods, perhaps many others. Perhaps the God of Islam is the correct God, or Zeus, or Thor.
Surely no one believes in Zeus or Thor any longer. We know that they are mythical gods.
How do you know? Just because many people, or perhaps all people believe something to be false, does not make it false.
Okay, but would believing in Zeus or Thor have infinite utility or gain?
I don't know. But suppose I grant that Zeus, Thor, and other so-called mythical gods are non-existent. What about the God of Islam? Certainly this God is a real option, and also promises eternal blessedness. How then will you decide on which God to believe in, the Christian God, or the Islamic God?
One should look at other evidence to determine which of these religions is more likely to be true.
What do you mean?
Well, it was foretold that Jesus Christ would come as the Messiah. There was no prophecy that foretold the coming of Muhammad. This is just one example. There are many other reasons to believe that Christianity is more likely to be true than the Islamic religion.
Okay, well, I have one final objection to your argument. You suppose that I can choose to believe what I want to believe. This assumes, however, that we are in fact in control of what we believe. Many philosophers would disagree with that assumption. Also, you assert that I should believe in the Christian God, not because there is good evidence, but for pragmatic, or as you say, prudential reasons. This does not seem morally permissible. We should only believe things that we have a lot of evidence for, and are likely to be true.
While we may not have direct control over our beliefs, we have indirect control over them. This is why I suggested that if you are unable to believe, you put yourself in an environment where you will more likely come to believe. I think that if you honestly seek God, He will give you faith and you will be able to believe. There is nothing that is morally impermissible with believing certain things without good evidence. For example, you probably believe that I have a mind like you, but I doubt that you have good evidence to support your belief that I have a mind. Also, I have stated many times that you are forced to wager. You must either believe or not believe. Why would it then be morally wrong to believe? How can something be morally wrong if you have no choice?
Okay. But since I am forced to wager, it is then better to not believe and to wager against God.
You say it is better, but we have already determined that it is better for you if you do believe.
I am just not sure about that, Pascal.
Well, okay. I think that either way our conversation has been beneficial.
Yes, I agree.